Boom, hey internets, wanted to touch on this subject, and I can relate to this in a lot of different ways. So if you know my channel, you know that I've been working in fashion since 2000 professionally, right? Not including like the hustle years. Name on the business card, working as a designer since 2000. So, you know, obviously making it to creative director, anything with director, the last several in-house positions, that's a long journey in clothing. But I've actually did start, the beginning of this channel was me having a failed clothing line in 2007, 2008. So I know the entrepreneurial struggle, and now I consult with a lot of entrepreneurs and brands so I could get them to that next level. So I'm always having conversations about the beginning of launching, relaunching, and trying to make things work a bit better. Now, if you comb through the body of work on this channel within design, production, sales, marketing, there's so many videos, there's so many different topics to kind of cover. There's intricacies that aren't as interesting to talk about but are just as important. So I try to disseminate a lot of information for you guys, but it can be overwhelming, and I completely understand this. My goals when I began as a designer before the 2000s, in the late 90s, was I was going to launch a brand in my 20s. I'm gonna make $1 million and put a huge portion of that money into real estate, and then continue on with a fashion career, see what happens, right? So I knew I wanted to work at several different companies, and prior to even beginning launching my first brand, I had worked at labels for 7 years, right? Tech packs, learning the process, seeing how upper management worked with people in the trenches, like how does the progress, how does the workflow actually function in a multi-million-dollar clothing line, is what I was trying to disseminate. And so within that time, I learned a lot of things, but when I launched my brand, I learned what I didn't know that well, which was sales and marketing. You've heard me talk about this on the channel quite a bit. And so for you guys that are launching right now here today, or have been thinking about it in the past several years, it's a different landscape than in the early 90s and even the early 2000s. Technology has disrupted and improved a lot of things, but created more competition. So there's different things to worry about now. Some things are a lot easier, but there's a lot more competition no matter how you slice the pie. So for you to not have a heart attack and not get overwhelmed, what I would say is just slow down. Less is more, right? So that works in this scenario when you're launching a fashion brand as well. So having a name and a logo, I wouldn't rush that. I have videos on this. Take a look at maybe this video here where I talk about coming up with a name, and for me it takes time. So if there's a name that I would come back to, and ideally I like people to create a name just so there's no chance of you having trademark infringement in there. You can take your time with that. Do what you're doing and do that over time. You can also do that with a lot of other things. So my main piece of advice here is take your big goals and chop them down into bite-sized pieces. Make them smaller goals that you can attain easily and have victory over that, and then move on to the next one. No one needs you to drop your clothing line right now, this month, this year. That is you telling yourself that you need to do that. You can always have more preparation. If you have a groundbreaking clothing line that you want to drop, it can still drop a year and a half from now and still do amazingly well, right? So the concept of taking your time and then doing a lot of preparation is what I'm trying to instill on you. And you can take your time to do that. There's so much homework to do before you even launch your first website, your first cash drop, or your first whatever web e-commerce that you use to actually put it out into the webosphere and into the world and say, hey, I have these shirts, hats, garments to sell. There's so much homework that goes before that, and I've talked about this in length, but setting up your marketing calendar is a ton of hours of work. So you can chip away at that month after month as you're doing your full-time job, or as you're going to school and running a part-time job. You want to chip away at it, and you can get to the point where you have so much preparation done at first. Another thing I want to touch on this video is a lot of people's anxiety and overwhelm comes from the investment of money. So typically in the beginning, you have more time than you have money to invest in. And so when you are using your job to take those funds and to create a clothing line, that's where a lot of anxiety obviously can be, because you're hoping that that turns into more money, right? The whole thing is getting that margin. So what do I say about your first several drops? You want to drop, sell out, and then make some more product, make some more product. Within those first several drops of your brand, you want to look for, say it with me, proof of concept, right? You want to make sure people want to see more from your brand, and you're doing a lot of things as that's going on, like improving your marketing, growing the exposure of your brand, just so that you can know that you're getting a good look. So when it comes to taking your time to figure out the steps you need to take, maybe you're buying your own blanks, right? And saving that margin there instead of ordering it from the screen printer. Maybe later you think ordering it directly with the screen printer is going to be saving you time, which you need more of, rather than saving those dollars. But in the beginning, when you're just doing planning in advance, you can break things down in smaller steps and save those extra dollars, right? Buying your own blanks, figuring out what woven labels you're gonna use, figuring out what type of blanks you wanna use, what kind of hats you wanna use. For me, I like Bella Canvas for a lot of its variety and diversity in offering, but for some of you, you might feel like you wanna go to a lower price point than that. That's fine, whatever you can start with whatever your budget is. My main point is, you can really pinpoint what kind of money you're spending and save some dollars if you just slow down and do a lot of your planning and forethought beforehand. So, devil's advocate, I also want to say you don't want to do paralysis by analysis, okay? Movement is not necessarily progress. Okay, so I value my time as well, though. Even though you have more time than money in the beginning, I value the time. So you want to strike when it's right, but I would gather to say at least 70% of the people that I talk to could have done way more preparation before they do their drop and their launch, okay? So a way you can de-stress this process a lot, better planning. Better planning. Do your planning up front. Answer every question you need about what you need to launch in the very beginning before you get your trademark or drop your first drop or design your first t-shirt, your first embroidered hat, any of that stuff, right? The designing of the collection is the fun part, right? So if you're super overwhelmed, slow it down, take it chunk by chunk, and then take a victory with that. There's no rush. You can drop the same dope line 2 years from this point, the same as if you're dropping it next month, okay? Hope that helps, guys. Questions, drop it below or hit me on this text number here. I'll see you guys on the next one. Give me a like on this before you go. Bye.